check. 1 2. Check this mic. Mic check 1 2. All right, looking good. Excuse me. All right. So, you know, I was just watching like all the shit that was going on. Like I think I got up this morning and I was watching the news clips on the news. Saw Joe Biden pretty much fall down the step. Jim Crow Joe and the G7. The G7. What a joke! Like these are only 7 countries that matter in the world, and I watched Jim Crow Joe almost fall down the fucking steps, and he looked like somebody's like grandfather or great grandfather who you know probably should be in a old folks home some fucking where. And just flipping through like some of the news of the day and shit, just looking at what was going on, you know, and um, you know, there was a story on about how they're coming up with like 18 genders, so it's not just male, female. Then it's gonna be, all these other different genders and shit. I'm like 18, like what the fuck, just flicking through the news reports, and I couldn't help but think like, you know, um, America is an open air insane asylum, you know, and yeah, it just that's what it struck me as, like, all of the shit that you watch, that goes on, all of the mass shootings, all of the weird, just the weird shit, you know, and like I was thinking, like, how could you have a president, like particularly like here's a guy, right? As I watched Jim Crow Joe falling down the steps and shit or whatever, about to fall down the steps. Here's a guy who basically, championed the KKK and segregation, right? And fast forward, denigrates and degrades black people, except for a few tokens that well-placed tokens, this type of shit they always do, place a few tokens. Everybody starts clapping. And then you get like 90% of the black people vote for him. And nobody questions it. Like nobody says, hey, this is weird. Why are you voting for this, basically this advocate for Jim Crow apartheid who insults you on a regular basis. You know what I mean? He insulted black people into voting for him. And I was thinking to myself, this is insane. Like, black people are insane. Like, how could you, you know what I mean? Like, why would you vote for somebody like this? And yeah, just more indications of the fact that, you live in a place that's run by sociopaths, right? You live in a place that's run by sociopaths like Joe Biden and Barack Obama and, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Nazis like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Joe Biden and they even got black ones like Obama. This guy's these sociopaths. Basically, you can't be in politics in America and not be a sociopath. But then it just goes to show you that America is an open air insane asylum. And it'll drive you crazy. It drives people crazy, right? That's why you have so many mass shootings. You said, why is there so many mass shootings in America? Is it the guns? No, it's not the guns. It's that America drives people crazy. America is an open air insane asylum. And people are dying to get into America, right? I mean, from whether it's Eritrea, Ethiopia, or Mexico, or Guatemala, or Venezuela, And what's funny is, like, they destroy Venezuela with their policies. And then you got Venezuelans, breaking their back, whether it's Cuba, wherever, to get into America. Whether it's Africa, wherever you go, they like destroy their countries. And then instead of the people, fighting to fix their countries and staying there, what do? They flee to America. And then, join in with a bunch of white supremacists. Like that Indian guy, what was his name? Starts talking a bunch of racist shit against black Americans. Ravik something, some shit I can't pronounce. But anyway. You get La Raza, right? Whiten the race and all this. You get all this weird shit in America, right? Mexicans running organizations to whiten their race, to integrate with white Spaniards or white Europeans to whiten the race, and like these Nazi Mexican groups. I mean, you get all kinds of weird shit in America, right? Then you got white Nazis, they don't like Mexicans, but then you got Mexican Nazis. Okay, this makes no sense. Right? None of it. It's like Hawkeye said in the movie. He's like, I'm fighting aliens in Avengers. He said, none of this makes sense. I'm fighting aliens with a bow and arrow. None of this shit doesn't make sense. What am I doing here? Right? That's America. It's like fighting aliens with bows and arrows. This shit is insanity. It's pure insanity. The more you stack it up against, the shit that just goes on, the more insane, the more and the more and the more insane you start to realize it is. It's an open air insane asylum. I see it like people in my family, my children, parents, I mean, you have some of the most unrealistic people that you're ever going to meet in America. You know what I'm saying? Like, they do I watch videos of them interviewing women, and they, like their unrealistic dating expectations. Where these motherfuckers think that the average man only makes about $50,000 a year. Women in America think the average man makes $100,000 or more a year. How the fuck is that possible that you think that? I was thinking to myself watching the, like the TikToks and different shit. And I was thinking to myself, how the fuck is it that you think that? Like, you don't read articles on like the median income in America or your city? You don't read economic articles on, like, you work, you got a fucking job. You don't read shit on like how much people make. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. People in America is an open air insane asylum. You know what I mean? And you just talk to people long enough, and you realize like they are insane. It's pure 100% uncut insanity, ran by the Antichrist, Satan, the devil. It's just made not to look that way, but it's going to look like Mad Max soon. So the spirit of America will match the physical, literal look of America. Like right now, it doesn't. Depending on where you at. Like if you're in Chicago, Baltimore, in one of the black areas or something like that, or Atlanta, then it looks, you see the insanity, kind of like on the surface. But everywhere else, it's pushed down, and sort of like when you see the police, like they'll have a protest, but like transgenders and anti-trans, and then they send the cops to kind of tamp shit down to make it look all normal. They don't want anybody fighting. But that's the point of a protest. You have two opposing groups. Eventually you're not gonna be able to stop it, right? So they have to tamp down on the madness, right? Where you have like 18 fucking genders. How is it possible? How is that even? Who is even considering that to have 18 genders, right? Total pure insanity, right? Where you can't talk people out of it, Trust me, I've tried. I've tried. I had a conversation with my mother, and I said I was looking. I happened to be sitting there, and I was looking at a Bible she had sitting on the table, and I read a lot out of the Bible, and I was looking at, like, I've studied the Book of Ezra. If you look on my page, you'll see like me do breakdowns on the Book of Ezra, the prophet. I think he's one of the most prolific prophets, most accurate and most timely prophets in the Bible. So I read, swaths of that book. And I noticed the Bible she had. I was like, this Bible, it only has 6 pages in the Book of Ezra. The Book of Ezra is way more than 6 pages. This doesn't even carry the description of the Antichrist and the prophecies of the end times that Ezra, talked about. And she was like, so I like it. I don't care. I was like, but the point is, wait a minute. That defeats the point of reading the book. If you don't have the entire book, that's insanity. What the fuck do you mean? You don't care. You claim to be a Christian. How could you be claiming to be a Christian if you don't want to know who the Antichrist actually is and what is the prophecies, of the Antichrist? What is the end time prophecies? They're written in the Book of Ezra. You don't want to read that? No, I don't give a shit about that. Oh, okay. America is an open air insane asylum. Doesn't matter, religion, whatever. You see it everywhere. You see it in your family. I mean, this is shit that you can't explain. How do you explain it? How do you explain, that, like, the reality to somebody? You say, listen, this is not a complete book. Don't you want to know what's in the rest of the book and the other pages? And they tell you, no, I don't want to know. But they'll tell you that they're a Christian. But you're a Christian, you don't want to know what's in the Bible? You don't believe? The Bible, there's a scripture that says, he said, believe on me. Jesus said, believe on me as the scripture has said. Well, if you ain't reading the goddamn script, you don't have a Bible with that scripture in it, then how are you going to believe on Jesus as the scripture has said? It doesn't make sense. None of this makes sense. I'm fighting aliens with bows and arrows, right? Like Hawkeye said. This doesn't make sense. That makes no sense what you just said. America is an open air insane asylum. Right? I was dating this chick, and I know about what she was telling me. This chick was a prostitute, you know what I mean? I looked up on her wall, she had like a cross. And I was thinking to myself, you should have that motherfucker upside down. Fuck you got a cross your head for? You a prostitute. That makes no sense. And particularly when you know that prostitutes are a sign of the Antichrist. I'm sorry, crosses are a sign of the Antichrist. They have nothing to do with the Bible. So then again, that makes sense. You know what I mean? So when I see people with incomplete Bibles and crosses, hookers with crosses, pretending that they're not prostitutes, and all kinds of weird shit going on, it makes total sense to me. It doesn't, it makes total sense to me, right? America is an open air insane asylum. You have people doing shit and they have no justification for why they're doing it. No understanding. They do shit, no understanding, no justification. And if you tried to explain it to them, you know what they would tell you? You're crazy. Shut the fuck up. You're crazy. You say, listen, you shouldn't have 18 genders. It's just male and female. They're like, shut up, you're crazy. But you say, well, 18 genders is not even possible. That's crazy. They said, no, the fact that you won't believe that 18 genders is possible is crazy. What? What? There's an experiment. Let me tell you something, man. You have to be careful. America will drive you crazy. These people are crazy. I was talking to this chick, another, and the same chick, I had to tell this bitch, get the fuck from around me. And I asked her a question, and she didn't answer me. I don't know why. She just kept talking. It was something real basic, right? And I said, why the fuck won't you answer questions when I ask you a question? You just skip over it and just keep talking. And I had to stop fucking with this bitch. I'm like, man, you fucking crazy. That's why. And you're not gonna drive me crazy with your fucking insanity. I'm not dealing with that. When I ask you a question, just answer the question. What is wrong with you? And these people for a while will seem normal until you ask them something and then it goes off the fucking rails. They'll do something and it'll go right off the rails. Another example, I was at work. So there's a black woman at work. I don't fuck with her at all anymore. She's America is an insane asylum, right? An open air insane asylum. So this black chick, we at work, and she says to me, I never asked her. Now this was unsolicited. Sometimes I solicit shit, like with my mother, the conversation I had with her, I solicited that. But a lot of times I don't. You know what I mean? Like I be fucking with trolling and shit, and I will solicit things. But this time I didn't. I was just, because when I'm working, I'm making money. I don't solicit conversations out of people generally, because I want my money and I don't want any trouble. Real simple. So, and when people tend to get too comfortable, they disrespect you at work, relationships, your family, whatever. So you have to be careful, you know what I mean, even with your own family, but particularly at work, with getting too comfortable with people, because they'll try to disrespect you. And this chick she started being like that. Like, she was getting too comfortable, so I started to stop fucking with her, tell her to get away from my desk or whatever, you know what I mean, kind of in a nice way. Like, kind of like, you know what I mean, stop sitting at my desk, you know, don't sit beside me, I'm busy, you know what I mean. And because I realized that, you know, like I said, America is an open air insane asylum. She tells me, this black chick tells me, she says, unsolicited, yeah, I don't date black guys. I said, oh really? She's like, yeah. I don't date black guys. I only, you know, I think she started telling me about her children, father's Mexican, and she only date Hispanic guys, and all this shit, right? And I'm like, oh, okay, really? Oh, okay. That's interesting. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even know. I didn't even ask her this. We were having a conversation. It might have been about, you know, some fucking cookies or something. And somehow she interjected, you know, the fact that she doesn't date black guys into the conversation. And she only dates Hispanic guys. And her children, you know, she said one of her children was kidnapped he took the children to Mexico. And all this bullshit, like, told me this long, elaborate story about how she had to connect with some high-powered people who went to Mexico and stepped to him and got the, you know, all this, some shit out of a movie, basically, right? Long story short, some bull. And I'm like, what? I'm like, wow. Now, mind you, fast forward 3, 4, 5 months later, her husband comes to the job. She said, oh, this is my husband. Now, I don't know if she's just that crazy or what, but she forgot that what she told me. Her husband was like this black guy, and I think she had one of her kids there. He was a black guy. He was black, and I'm thinking to myself, yo, you told me this fucking story about what happened to the Mexican husband. Now, mind you, this woman probably makes like 80 grand a year, right? And I noticed something. All the white people and everybody there loves this woman. And I'm thinking to myself, this bitch is fucking insane. But you know why they love her? Because they insane as well. They don't really like me. I don't give a fuck. They're not real. I know that I just watch people and I watch how talkative they are with her and how much they be ha 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 key, right? I don't do that. I'm good on all that bullshit. Can I help you? You need what? Okay, sure, no problem. You know, take care of it. Alright, cool. Talk to you later. Have a nice day. Right? Keep it professional, keep it moving. I don't give a fuck. Like, hey, how you going? Nah, I'm good on that. Good morning, good night. Can I help you? And so, but yeah, so this woman, I'm like, what? Your husband is black, your kids are black. What happened to the Mexican children and the Mexican husband, and you don't date black people? So this bitch is start raving mad at a certain level. That's a murder. And they pay this bitch like $80,000 a year. Right? I know because she told me. Right? She wanted me to know. You know what I mean? Not that, and I don't go around telling people how much money I make. Generally, I might hint at it, but and so, but America is an open air insane asylum. It makes people crazy. You see? And so, particularly black people, and it don't matter. Like particularly like if you black or an immigrant or you from Indian or some shit like that, this shit will drive you stark raving mad. That's why you got Mexican Nazis. Explain that shit. Make it make sense. How the fuck do you got Mexican Nazis? Right? When the Nazi, what makes you a Nazi, here's the kicker, right, for all the dumbass Mexican Nazis. What makes you a Nazi is the fact that you're a white supremacist. Mexican, if you're a Mexican and you're an indigenous Mexican, that would mean you descend from dark-skinned people. You descend from Indians. You see? Indigenous dark-skinned people, even though you might be kind of light from getting raped by a bunch of Spaniards who stole your language and now you speak Spanish. But you're not from Spain. Right? I mean, 80% of your DNA might be, you know, indigenous Indian, right? And you speak Spanish, and now you're a Nazi. Make that shit make sense. Nazis aren't. What makes a Nazi is a white supremacist. Now you could be a fascist, and so there's different levels, right? So Nazis are also fascists. So you could be a fascist like Barack Obama, right? But you're not necessarily a Nazi. Nazi is the upper echelon, so that's when you get in. Nazi denotes racism. And the Nazi, so a fascist Nazi is a white supremacist like Joe Biden. So Obama could be a fascist, which he is, but he can only be like a familiar. You know what I'm saying? Like he can be a fascist Negro, you know, mulatto that works for the Nazis, which he does, right? But he can't necessarily be a Nazi. He could just work for Nazis and be a fascist. You have to be a white supremacist to be a Nazi. So when you see people saying, like you see people saying shit on TV like, you're suppressing my right speech, my free speech. You're a Nazi. Well, that's not what Nazism is, stupid. You just show that you're ignorant. You have no idea what Nazis are. Now you could be a fascist, but you're not a Nazi. And suppressing your free speech doesn't make you a fucking Nazi. Or necessarily a fascist. Right? That's not what that means. Right? Now you could say that you are a oppressive totalitarian, right? Who just happens to be a Nazi or a fascist. But just the fact that I smack the shit out you and stop you from talking or lock you up and suppress your free speech or whatever doesn't make you a Nazi or a fascist. You could be you could be a communist and do that. You could be a socialist. You see? It doesn't denote political socio-political affiliations, which you don't have any idea about. And you know why? Because you know why? Because you don't have an idea about it because you're fucking insane. America drives people insane. And insane people generally are not intelligent. Right? They're not truly intelligent. An insane person is not truly intelligent. For instance, let me give you an example. Dr. Benjamin Carson, who's from Baltimore, right? From Maryland. Well, he's not from there, but I remember him from Johns Hopkins in Maryland, right? Where I grew up. Now, here's a man who supposedly is a brain surgeon, gifted, right? Now, I watched a speech with him where he said that the pyramids was used in Egypt, which is in Africa, was used for storing grain. That's the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my life. So you ask yourself, why is this brain surgeon who's so accomplished now spewing ridiculous, comments about things in the world, right? It's the insanity. The insanity starts to make you stupid, and you say stupid shit. Like the full books of the Bible doesn't matter. I don't need to read that to understand the Bible. Or the pyramids in Egypt are for storing grain. Nigga, the pyramids in Egypt are not for storing grain. I'm a dumbass motherfucker and I know that. What are you talking about? You're out of your fucking mind. I don't care if you're a brain surgeon. Right? Or were. Or you're washed up now. Or were a brain surgeon. I believe he's barred from Johns Hopkins, where he worked. I think they barred him from there for stupid shit. For some stupid antics and shit like that he had said. Right? And you say, well, how could this man who's a brain surgeon be saying all of this low IQ dumb shit? Right? It's the mental illness that is America. America is an open air insane asylum. And no matter whether you're a brain surgeon or a social worker or a person with a master's degree, you're probably insane at a certain level. You're suffering from some type of mental disorder. Why? Because you in America. You see? You living in America. Right? The home of the Nazis. Germany is not the home of the Nazis for the stupid people. America and Ukraine is the home of the Nazis. They originated the Nazis that were birthed into Germany. In case you didn't know it, if you don't believe it, go look it up. I didn't know. I found out recently. I mean, I had an idea, but I didn't know for sure until I came across some information recently. They taught Hitler everything. The Ukrainian and American Nazis taught Hitler everything they know. That's why you should be well aware that what's going on in Ukraine is a Nazi operation. It's a white supremacist Nazi operation run by the American Nazis and the Ukrainian Nazis, who are the OGs of the Nazis. Right? And look, think about who's in charge over there. They got a Zio-Nazi in charge, Zelensky, right? Who happens to be Jewish, which is a religion, not a race, right? And the Russians call him a Nazi. And they said, well, Zelensky can't be a Nazi. He's Jewish. That has nothing to do with it. That's some shit you say to dumb people. Dumb Americans. Right? Stupid Americans. That's shit you say to them. Not stupid, but insane Americans. Just let's just say, mentally ill Americans. Right? That's shit you say to them. You say, well, he's Jewish. He can't be a Nazi. That's bullshit. You have no idea what Nazi means. Because if you did know what it meant, you wouldn't make a statement like that. But they know that the people that they're talking to are fucking insane, so you can get away with saying anything to them. Right? The Jews in Israel are the upper echelon of white supremacy. They always have been. The second in charge of the Confederacy was a man, right, named Judah P. Benjamin, who was a Jewish man. They led blacks into slavery and anti-black racism in the United States. They led that whole thing in the Americas. They led it. So what the fuck do you mean they're not white supremacists, Nazi fascists? They are the top of the fucking ladder. They're the top of the pyramid. If you see any fighting going on between white people like them and Hitler, that's just a civil war among Nazis. That's a Nazi civil war. That's all that is, stupid. Go read a book. That's all that is. You just don't understand what you're looking at. Because you live in America, right? And no matter how many degrees you got, you're probably fucking mentally ill at a certain level. So it cancels out your ability to think, and it short circuits your intelligence at a certain level, right? Like Benjamin, like I said, Dr. Carson, who then starts telling you that the pyramids in Egypt are used for storing grain. You said, why does this man have, the brain surgeon making these dumbass comments? Because you live in he's around Americans. Right? And that shit drives you crazy, and then the crazy shit starts making you say shit that doesn't jive with reality. No, motherfucker, the pyramids are not for storing grain, Mr. Brain Surgeon. Right? And then you have to ask yourself another question. Why would Donald Trump put Benjamin Carson, a doctor, in charge of HUD and not Health and Human Services? Not the CDC or something like that. You see? America is in an open-air insane asylum. And it drives you so insane that you start to lose your ability to think properly. Right? It's what they call fanaticism, right? It's like a fanatic, right? Right? They say you're a fanatic. American fanatics. You see, you become a fanatic. Right? USA, 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 USA. Right? To the point where you can't even think straight. You get caught up in the hype, like Public Enemy said, don't believe the hype. You feel me? And so you wind up becoming crazy like the rest of them in America. You just become another casualty. Your spirit becomes a casualty of the Antichrist system that is America. That is, New Babylon. And most people don't see it because America destroys your ability to be self-aware. For real. And I'm telling you, these people are fucking insane. The ones in my family, the ones I meet come on, man. Just like I said about the woman on the job. How could you tell a story like that and it's not true unless something's wrong with you mentally? How could you be that detached from reality, but at the same time, you have a job making $80,000 a year, and you come in here to work every day, and you don't need a mental exam, you don't need a mental checkup to come in here. I find that shit scary, because if you're doing that, who says you just want to come in here and kill everybody at work? You so detached from reality. You can come up here and make up a story about you have a Mexican husband and you don't. You have half Mexican children and you don't. I don't even talk to this woman anymore. I was like, yo, good morning, good night. Stay the fuck away from my desk. Jesus Christ. This woman is insane. But that's people in America. And they'll tell you quick, there's nothing wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with you. There's something very wrong with you. Right? That's why you have, so many mass shootings, so much racism, so much drug use, right? And this story says California seized enough fentanyl to potentially kill the entire population of America twice. Right? That's crazy. There's enough drugs in America to kill the whole country. Enough guns. You got guns and drugs everywhere. Enough drugs and guns to kill the whole population. To OD the whole population twice. Or three. Really, that's just fentanyl. We haven't counted heroin, cocaine, right? Other pharmaceuticals. There's enough drugs in America for people to kill each other, to kill themselves, like overdose, like 10 times over. You say, well, why is that? They're self-medicating because these people America is an open-air insane asylum. And, well, if you can't get, medical counseling, well, you just take some drugs or alcohol, right? To try to numb the pain, right? Like, And like me, I find it hard to date, hard to be around people. And probably because I'm picky and I get tired of the insanity. I get tired of dealing with like my family and you know what I mean, and people. I get tired of dealing with people all day that's detached from reality. You know what I mean? Like that shit is stressful. Like dealing with like women in America. If you're a man and you like, you know, and you not really, you know, you pretty practical, you know, regular guy doing regular shit, you know, and you got your head on pretty straight, right? And you trying to date all of these insane fucking women. Women who don't even know what the median income of a man in America is. Women that think the median income of a man in America is $200,000 and all this kind of shit. Be like, where are you getting this from? Who told you that? You know what I mean? Like, just weird shit. Right? The independent woman. I mean, these are some of the most nuttiest fruitcakes you ever want to see. Right? I mean, it just drives everybody crazy. And then you got to try to date these people. You know what I'm saying? Have relationships. That's why the kids are so fucked up. You know? And you can't tell nobody the truth. That's why the kids is all fucked up. Wonder why you got all these kids shooting up the schools. Right? And all that kind of shit. America is an open air insane asylum. Right? And it has been ever since those people came here. And you know what I'm talking about. Right? Because when you got a bunch of genocidal maniacs robbing, stealing, and genociding everybody, a bunch of Nazis, right? A bunch of fascist Nazis. They talk about America is a democratic republic. America is not a democratic republic. It never has been. America is a Nazi stronghold. And it always has been by definition, right? By definition, everything else is propaganda, right? That you've been told. It's stupid propaganda. America is a Nazi fascist stronghold. And it always has been, right? That's why they genocided blacks, Indians, so-called blacks and so-called Indians. Right? And stole all that shit and called it manifest destiny. Right? And then set the wheels in motion to make they call it a melting pot. A melting pot of what? Insanity? That's all it is. I mean, you got all kinds of people come here so they could be white supremacists. You got Mexicans, Indians from India that's blacker than me. You got Africans. You got everybody. They come to America, all type of Hispanics, from indigenous people from South. They come here to be white supremacists in America. That's insane. Don't you know what goes on here? All kinds of Asians. They come here from Asia. They want to be put on Nazi uniforms to be white supremacists and fascists. Right? And then they'll come here and call, like Robert Kiyosaki. He comes here and he calls black people, he said black people are communists and socialists. He said Martin Luther King was a communist. That's the furthest thing from the truth. Robert Kiyosaki is a Nazi fascist. He's a fascist wannabe, a Nazi wannabe. That's all he is. Right? And a racist anti-black. I've posted the clips of him and the shit that he said about black people. He's been quite verbal about how he feels. But anybody that, then you come here, get yourself a white woman, have some half-white children, right? And then start talking bad about black people, calling black people communists and Nazis, and when you're a fucking Nazi. Japan was locked arms with the Nazis during World War II. Right? I mean, this shit, you can't make this shit up. That's the insanity of America, though. Right? Where you have people that are black, Asian, Mexican, Indian, whatever, that want to be a white supremacist. You have skin bleaching in Thailand and Africa. So it's worldwide. Why the fuck would you want to bleach your skin in Africa? See, the insanity has reached. That's why it says in the Bible, the America is going to be destroyed, and this whole planet is going to get destroyed. It says your sins have reached the heavens, right? Your sins have reached the heavens, and you got to be destroyed for what you've done. Right? When you corrupt a whole swaths of people and drive them crazy to the point where people in Africa are bleaching, in Thailand are bleaching their skin. Something has gone very wrong in America and in the world. Right? Where people are walking around just making up shit. They just walk. I mean, people will just make up shit, right? Just start making up shit. It doesn't matter what the truth is, right? It doesn't matter, you know. It doesn't matter what the reality of it is, right? They just want it to be their way, you know. And if you tell them it's not what they say, they'll get mad at you. They won't want to speak to you anymore. God is going to destroy you people in America and this whole goddamn planet, right? There's a saying, right? It says reality will assert itself. That's talking about God. You can put God in there, right? God will assert itself. Reality is God. Truth is God, right? That's all part of what makes God God, right? 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 Hold on a sec. So yeah, so I'll deal with that in a minute. Sorry. But reality will assert itself. You know what I mean? Reality will assert itself. Like, I had a conversation with my mother and she's like, I don't give a fuck about what's in the rest of the book of Ezra. Well, you should. And the reality of what is written in that book is going to assert itself on you and everybody you know. See, that's God. Right? Reality will assert itself on Americans. See, Americans are going to face reality. They say that they're exceptional in America. Exceptionally what? Exceptionally large drug users and maniacs? That would be true. That's probably true. If you want to say, you know, exceptional maniacs, well, that would be true, right? And exceptional, you know, excessive drug use, right? Why? Because you're dealing with mentally ill people that are trying to hide from something. And what is it that they're trying to hide from? When you're doing all these drugs and you're denying what's written in books, and you only want to hear lies, you only want to be around people that tell you that you're right about everything, right? You only want to be around people. There's a concept. There's a couple concepts I'm gonna describe real quick before I go. One is about the SRI experiment, and the other Stanford Research Institute. And the other one is the concept about people like me, like why I have so many people that don't like me, around me, and probably why I can't get along with women, right? And it's because something, I changed as I got older. And what it is it's a concept you're done. Like you can use it to play. You can use it to play mind games on people. So what I'm telling you, I don't do it, but I understand the concept. And you can use it to play mind games on people if you understand, right? Like Jedi mind tricks. Basically, what that concept is three things, right? And if, okay, so let's say you want to get people to like you. You say, well, how do I get people to like me? Well, it's kind of three things that you just generally don't want to do, right? Don't ever tell them that they're not wrong about anything. Don't ever tell them that they're not, and don't ever tell them that they're not a good person, right? And the other one, there's one more thing. Don't ever tell them they're not wrong, that they're wrong about something. Don't tell them that they're not a good person. And I forgot the other one. It slips my mind. But it's three things. But those two are the three things, right? It'll come back to me. I'll come back to that, right? So these, things like that, right? If you do those kind of things, then people, if you don't do those kind of things, then you can get people to like you. But like me, I'll tell you, like, you're wrong. You see? I don't have a problem telling people when they're wrong. And also that they're not a good person. Right? I'll deal with those two. The third one will come back to me. Right? But I have no problem saying you're wrong and you're not a good person. Like Americans, generally, these are not good people. Right? Like the Bible, you say, well, how can you say that? That's terrible. Well, I'm just saying, see, all you fake Christians, so I was going to say something, but I'm not. Let's just say you're full of it, right? In the Bible it says, Jesus said, there's no one, when the woman said, the man said something about being good. He said, I'm not good. He said, there's no one good except the Most High, right? That is in heaven. I think it was that exact quote. There's no one good. But people are offended when you tell them that they're not good people. But they say, I'm a Christian. Are you offended by the words of Christ? You shut up. Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I thought. But if Jesus stood up and said that to you, what would you say? Said you're not a good person. Would you be offended by Christ? Would you be angry with him? He said there are no good people. And there aren't. There are no good people. I'm not a fucking good person. What do you mean? There are no good people, particularly in places like America. It's one of the most corrupt. America is an insane asylum. These are not good people and they're not right about everything. So fuck it. Go ahead and get mad. I'll remember the third thing. It'll come back to me. Right? That's Americans. They want to be right about everything, and they want to be told that they're good people. And if you tell them that, you don't tell them that, then they're mad with you. They're angry. But that's how that's a couple of the concepts of how you get people to like you. Just tell them they're right about everything and they're good people. Keep telling them how good they are, and then you can kind of like get over on them. Just play along, as they say. Go along and get along. Like at work, at work, I don't say that kind of shit, but when I'm off of work, I'll tell you, right? Like women, right? Most of the women you meet, right? They don't want you to tell them, like, you on a date and you tell a woman she's wrong and she's not a good person. That shit is over with. She's a liar or she's bullshitting, running game. Oh, that shit is over with. You might as well just check, please, and never speak to these bitches. No, never speak to her again. So it's a fact, right? Now, before I go, I'm going to talk about the SRI experiment, Stanford Research Institute, right? Because it's really important, right? And it explains everything perfectly. Why the Stanford Research Institute, there was an experiment that I read that a professor did on his students, right? And in that experiment, right, what he did was, with the kids in the class, he said, one of the guys went out, one of the students went to the bathroom. He said when he comes back in the bathroom, and this is a example of how America drives people crazy, and how people will drive you crazy. And if you want to not be driven crazy in America, I'm gonna give you the antidote right now. I'm gonna clue you in, right? So that you don't burn in America. Or let's say if you've been fucked over in America, right? Mentally fucked over, how you can start to, like I was mentally fucked over in America, right? But I had to get my swagger back, right? Because I was mentally being fucked over in America. And America was driving me crazy. You see? So I'm going to explain this to you. And if you understand this, you can start to get your mind right, as they say. You got to get your mind right. I had to get my mind right in America. Because America fucked your mind up. Right? Because you want to get next to some woman. So you listen to all the bullshit she say. Or you want to get a job. Or whatever, right? Or you want to do this or do that. So you motivated by your greed and you're wanting to be, you don't want to be separated. You want to be in the in crowd, right? You want to be part of America, part of the system, part of society, part of your family. So you go along with the bullshit until it drives you crazy, right? And you die an unrealistic death. Now, but here's the kicker, right? Here's an antidote, a psychological antidote. And if you understand what I'm about to tell you, it gives you the weapons to fight back. I'm going to say this and go. So I'm explaining. So there was an experiment at Stanford Research Institute where the college professor guy, one of the students leaves the room. He says, listen, when he comes back in the room, I'm going to ask a simple question. He's going to get the answer right. We are all going to tell him that he's wrong. And no matter how long he insists that he's right, we'll all insist that he's wrong until we convince him to go along with us and say, okay, well maybe I got that wrong, right? So the guy came back in the room, and so he said, okay, let's pick back up. He said, let me ask you a question, class. What is blah blah blah, right? What do you think? What is blah blah blah? And so we asked the guy, Joe, can you tell me what that is? And Joe said, yeah, sure, that's easy. That's such and such. He gave the answer, and he said, no, that's wrong. And he said, no, that's right. I mean, it's definitely. He said, no, you're wrong. He said, and he started asking other students, is he wrong? And they was like, yeah, you're wrong. That's not correct. And they went around, and everybody was like, yeah, that's wrong. And he said, oh, well, I guess I got it wrong then. I guess I'm wrong about that. I just knew I was right. And then they were able to convince him that he was wrong about something that he knew for sure. They were able to convince him of that, right? To the point where they forced him to change his mind. You see how dangerous that is? You see why everybody in America is crazy? Why America drives people crazy? That experiment is indicative of the mind games, the mind fuck that they do on you in America. That your family and your friends, everybody that you know is doing on you. Your school, the people at work, all these fucking maniacs. This is what they're doing to you, right? Because you are getting a glimpse of reality, the Matrix, right? Like Neo, I'm Morpheus in the Matrix, right? All I'm offering you is the truth. All I'm offering you is reality. You see? Now you could take the red pill or the blue pill and go back to sleep. The choice is yours. You see? And so when you understand that concept, you understand the red pill and the matrix. You start to be able to see the matrix as it exists, not in life, not as you want it to be. That's the key, right? And you can resist people that are trying to convince you that something is something that it's not. And you won't get caught up in the bullshit. See, America is going to end up scorched earth like the rest of a lot of this planet soon. And it boils down to one simple thing, right? It just boils down to one simple thing: reality, right? See, the Buddhists, when they say, "What is reality?" You know what the Buddhists will tell you? That's reality. You just experienced it. That sound, a sound, right? You figure that out. You have to figure that out, right? What is reality? You see? Until you can, if you can be convinced that reality is something that is not, like the guy from Stanford University, you're gonna be driven crazy, and that's what they want. It's like zombies, right? They're crazy. They want to bite you and make you crazy too. They want you to join in with them, right? Like a zombie, right? You have to see reality for what it is. Like Martin Luther King, I'm gonna say this and go. He said Martin Luther King realized he was bullshitting himself, right? And he was bullshitting people. You see? With that whole American dream, and I have a dream that one day little black boys and little white girls and everybody gonna be holding hands in America, and it's gonna be peace, harmony, and utopia and equality. You know, right before they killed Martin Luther King, he took all that back and said America was gonna fucking burn. That America was a burning house, and eventually obviously gonna burn down. So I'm not pulling this out of my ass when I say certain things. I'm not that smart, but he was. He knew what was coming. He knew that he was being unrealistic and that he was selling people a bad bill of goods, a bunch of bullshit. In other words, cap, as the young people say. That's cap. He knew that an old dream, all that shit was cap, and he could see why. He could see from a scientific level into the future that this shit wasn't going to work. Why? Because you were dealing with people that are bad faith actors. He knew deep down that the people he was dealing with, when it came to his people, was bad faith actors. And no matter what happened, they was going to pour poison in the well. And eventually, his people was going to drink from it in America and be destroyed in America. See, y'all drinking from the poison that is America. They drank from the well, you see? And the well was been poisoned. Martin Luther King knew that, you see? He saw it coming, and then he recanted, and before he could do anything, the pivot, to lead the people in pivot, they killed him. You see? Because he started to see reality, right? And he started not only to see reality, he started to basically to let his people know. He wanted to let his people lead them in a more realistic, instead of the dream shit, he wanted to lead them in a direction of reality. And they said, well, yeah, we can't have that. You see? We want to make, we want to make up this, fake, we want to feed people this fake shit. We don't need you coming in with this reality. You see? We don't, and it goes deeper. I'm gonna end this. I've been going for a while. But it goes even deeper than that on different levels with Martin Luther King. We want to get into the Bible and different things where he was just misleading people. You see? But as they say in the Bible, the wages of sin is death. You see? The wages of sin is death, right? And so that is what it is, right? That was his karma. You see, for misleading tens of millions of black people. You see? And he tried to repent, but it was too late. You see? He tried to repent for what he had done. He could see he wanted people to be realistic. He wanted to help open people's eyes. Right? But what happened, they killed him and then they pulled the wool over everybody's eyes. And so now we're at a point where reality is going to insert itself. You see? So reality is going to insert itself. So the insane asylum is no saving America. There's no saving the insane people in America. Right? You either gonna be led through intuition, right, and through the Spirit of God into the light, into a path to walk out of America, or you gonna burn up in nuclear fire. That's your two choices. There's no other options. There's nothing else. I know people want to tell you, well, all this shit, hey, the game's on, this is going to happen, this is going to be a utopia. Well, even Martin Luther King knew that wasn't true 70 years ago, and you're a dumbass, particularly a Negro, if you ain't figured that out by now, that something has went wrong, that this train has went off the track, and ain't no putting it back on track. That's not in the plans, right? Why? Well, God tells you why in the book of Habakkuk, right? I'm going to say this and go. Right? He says, woe unto them that build a town with blood and establish a city by iniquity, right? That's the fate of America. That's the prophecy for America in Habakkuk 2:12, right? There's nothing good can be made sometimes from things that are so bad. You just have to build and destroy. That has to be destroyed in a new thing. Like it says in the book of Revelations. You see? He said, John, what did John say? The prophet, right? The holy prophet John, what did he tell you? He said, and then in a dream, I saw a new heaven and I saw a new earth come down, right? You see? And I saw New Jerusalem come down, the city, out of the sky. I saw a new heaven and a new earth. The earth going to be destroyed, is going to be made new. New Jerusalem going to come down out of the sky. You see? That city that he saw, that ship is going to come down out of the sky. And the people on that ship is going to destroy America. And destroy the rest of this world from the North Pole to the South Pole. And like John said, you're going to see a new heaven and a new earth. You're going to see a new earth made. Vladimir Putin, Dmitry Medvedev, who used to be the president, he's now on the Defense Council of Russia. He said, you know what? And he hinted at that. He hinted at it. He said, if we can't remake the world with laws, we will remake the world with nuclear hypersonic missiles. Well, that's the spirit of the Lord of Hosts that then jumped on him. Because that's the spirit that the Lord of Hosts going to have. You see? He's not going to remake this world. He's not going to try to remake this world through logic and through any of that shit that you think. He's going to remake this world with scalar blue-green lasers and lakes of fire. He's going to turn whole cities into lakes of fire. Whatever's left that the Russians don't burn up. Because as soon as they pop, then he going to pop. Right? And New Jerusalem going to come down in the sky like in the book of John, in the book of Revelations. You see? And he going to finish the job. And he going to burn this place from North Pole to South Pole. You see? That's what the lake of fire. You're going to turn this cities into whole lakes of fire. You see? He's going to like Dmitry Medvedev said, he's going to transform the earth through destruction. In Dmitry Medvedev, he said nuclear weapons. But in the case of the Lord of Hosts, it's going to be blue-green scalar lasers hitting the earth, right? If you want to know what that looks like, there's something you can Google. Google the eye of the Sahara. I'm going to say this and I'm going to go this time. The eye of the Sahara, right? Here's some occult knowledge for you. We're going to get into a little occult knowledge. So the eye of the Sahara in Africa, there used to be pyramids there with a bunch of wicked ass aliens. The Lord of Hosts and the people, his people, destroyed that place, right? Thousands of years ago. To get rid of them, they came back and built those pyramids in Egypt, and they're going to be turned into dust, right? Soon, very soon. Enjoy the pyramids while you can. And in the eye of the Sahara, they launched blue-green lasers at the ground. It hit the ground and created these circles, and it burnt up everything, right? Under the earth and on top of the earth for miles around. That's what created the eye. It's called, I forget what else it's called. It has another name for it. But if you Google Eye of the Sahara, right, you'll see and look at it. They call it an eye because it's all of those circles on the ground, these huge circles, right? Miles and miles wide circles, right? Well, that's what happened there. It's not a natural formation. It was formed by an attack. There were pyramids, just like in Giza, in the Eye of Sahara. There were a bunch of aliens there, right? The predecessors to the Antichrist, that is now him and his people that are now here, and his minions, right? And they was wiped out. They killed them. They didn't wipe them out. This time, they're going to be wiped out. Here's the kicker. This time, they're going to be wiped out. They're going to chase them everywhere. They're going to find every single one of them this time. And they're going to burn their asses up. And anybody that is caught dealing with them, right, is going with them. That's the kicker. That's why this is important. Anybody caught dealing with them, right, is going with them. You see? See, this time is going to be different. Right? It's not going to be like what happened at the Eye of the Sahara in Africa when they burnt them up the first time and they let them, some of them escape and they came back and reconstituted themselves. This time is going to be interplanetary war on a level that they hunt them down, and anybody that helps them, whether knowingly or unknowingly. You say, well, I didn't know. Well, it's too late for you. And a lot of people here are helping them knowingly and unknowingly. So, but anyway, let me go. That's the last part. I said too much, so I'm gone.